Hey folks, there's nothing like a weekend, a Memorial Weekend, to remind us that there are certain things in life that are weighty. When you think about the freedoms we're enjoying in this country, the nation we live in, the blessings that we have and experience every single day, and that those blessings all go back to the willingness of a whole lot of people who are willing to lay their lives down, to give their lives for this country. It reminds us of the importance of the Christian worldview, the importance of transcendent values, the importance of belief in God and in truth and in things that transcend life itself. If you take those things out, you have nothing worth living for, let alone anything worth fighting and dying for. That's really what's at stake in seeing a revival of righteousness in our country and a return to Christ, a return to Scripture, a return to a biblical worldview. We're going to talk about that in our podcast today.
Hey, welcome to the Ron Johnson Discipleship Podcast.
This is also known as the post-Memorial Weekend recovery room. There's a lot of moaning and groaning going on in this room. Matthew actually been over prior to Memorial Weekend. Picked up a piece of paper, threw his back out. I don't know if these guys are trying to emulate me. They're jealous.
Trying to be more like you.
I got my wheelchair over here. I'm going to share it. In true Christian love, I'm going to share it with both these guys because you were hurt. Well, I'm proud of you. I'm proud of the restraint that you actually demonstrated. Yeah. I was talking to my son-in-law, Joshua, who he and Caroline live in our basement where you once lived. Only it's nicer now.
It's much nicer.
It's nicer now.
A little bathroom and everything.
Oh, yeah. They got a fancy pad down there. But anyway, Josh came home and announced that he had been playing one of your favorite games with you, which is Ultimate Frisbee.
Ultimate Frisbee.
Which to me would be the most boring game in the world because I can't throw it and I can't catch it. So everybody would just be staring at me in total amazement. Like, what is the purpose? Why did you throw the Frisbee over there? But you're good at that. You did that in college.
Yeah, I play a lot Frisbee in my younger days. So I got a text, a bunch of young guys getting out there. Most of them in their 20s. A couple of your son-in-law. Cam was down there too.
Cam's
and
good
with
too.
the whole Tim family. Pretty much all of them.
Yes.
And a bunch of people. I don't even know. Some of them I don't even recognize.
Okay, so I got a question for you guys. Of course, our producer's sitting to my right.
Yeah.
What is that age that you reach when all of a sudden you realize you don't have it like you used to have it? Right now. I mean, 38. You can't. But Debbie's last words to you, the words of a wise wife.
She said, "Don't get hurt.
Don't get hurt.
Whatever you do, don't get hurt. I don't care what you do, just don't get hurt."
Which at my stage, the threshold between like warming up and wearing out and getting hurt is like gets shorter and shorter. But you guys, I remember that when I was like, okay, I'm not going to go to this picnic and play, crazy volleyball and act like I'm 15.
Yeah.
But that's good. You're functioning. You're walking.
Yeah, I'm sore today, but it was a fun time. It was really. Sun was beautiful yesterday.
What a day! Yeah,
what a day!
Day.
I had my boys were out there because we went to the Y to do a little workout in the morning before that. So they got to see their old man and literally this time running around chasing the frisbee like a dog. I'm just running around, get the frisbee. And there were a couple of big guys out there, and I just stayed away from them. I didn't want to run into brick walls. So. And so I stayed mostly injury free. So
I appreciate it because if I have two gimpy guys for this podcast, we can't even go live. If I'm counting on you guys. As long as I sit here, I'm okay. Just don't have me stand up or anything.
Yeah, I still can walk. Yeah.
But anyway, it was a great weekend. Great weekend of worship, and it's always I was just thinking about. Memorial Weekend. There's the other holidays and all that kind of stuff, and every holiday has its own significance and holiness and weightiness to it. But man, there's just something about Memorial Weekend when you realize that this weekend remembers folks that are not here right now. They paid the ultimate price. So they, I see those memes that come out on social media, of people at the beach. You're here at the beach because these folks came to the beach before you, and obviously talking about some of the World War II and the invasion, Normandy, and all of that, and just the bloodshed that took place so that we could have the freedoms that we have. So I passing that on down to the next generation, the weightiness of that, and truly valuing our country and valuing the sacrifices and all that have gone before us. I think there's just something about Memorial Weekend that is huge.
Well, you can tell the character and the culture of a country by what holiday they celebrate.
Yeah.
Right? Because those are landmarks. Those are basically core values. They're saying, we value this so much, we're going to celebrate this holiday. That's why even when we talk about Pride Month in June, it's making a very powerful statement. Or not celebrating Pride Month in June is making a statement. So Christmas, Thanksgiving. What does Thanksgiving say about the value of America, right?
Right.
So Memorial Day is speaking about our value. We honor those who lay their lives down. This is not just, it's your job. No, we honor them because we value their sacrifice. We're saying with the sacrifice you have made, that's not forgotten. It's really important to us as a nation.
And this podcast is dedicated to connecting the dots, obviously, between truth, between a biblical worldview, and what difference does that make in terms of human flourishing, in terms of the real world in which we live, not the ivory tower world of academia, but the real world in which we live. And I think it's good that we just pause here for a moment because, let's just take war and military, the esprit de corps kind of thing, people even willing to in America, we don't force people to fight for our country. We have a voluntary system. So why is it that anybody would want to join our armed forces and willingly risk their lives, put their lives in harm's way? What would cause a young man or woman to want to do that? And now we get right back, to worldview and to what really, really matters. And I think it's good to connect some dots here today. I was looking at a couple different articles that I thought was really, really good. Let me try to find them real quick. This one on freedom, this is from FRC. Freedom isn't free, and neither is the faith that sustains it. We're talking about how this holiday in particular reminds us of the weightiness of what it is that we're fighting for. And it says here, there have been 1.1 million Americans who have died in uniform since 1775. That perished for a constitutional order conceived by men who pledged their lives, their fortunes, and their sacred honor upon, quote, a firm reliance on the protection of divine providence. And so here we have, again, a reference to God Almighty and to God's hand upon this nation. But this is interesting. Recruitment and retention collapsed under policies that treated the profession of arms as a laboratory for social engineering. Of course, we're talking about the Biden administration. Social engineering rather than a vocation ordered to victory. A generation catechized in moral relativism was offered pronouns instead of purpose. Equity seminars instead of esprit de corps. Readiness metrics cratered. Chaplains were muzzled by bureaucratic orthodoxy. In God we trust became an embarrassment rather than a premise of the oath. We're talking here about what sustains a sense of passion, patriotism, willingness to fight for your country. And we saw all of that was absolutely destroyed for the 4 years under the Biden administration. We had transgender generals. We had chaplains who were muzzled and were not allowed to actually share things about Jesus. We had pictures, Christian portraits and things on the walls that were taken off the walls and put into the basement. I remember of the Naval Academy because they had a overtly Christian meaning. What happens when you gut your country, you gut your military? And I'll even go a step farther here. This administration, one of the first things that Trump did was attack the whole DEI and CRT. And you can see from a military standpoint, this actually has to do with national security, because if you believe your country is evil, inherently evil, racist, if you believe that the Constitution, is a terrible document, what kind of you're creating a bunch of citizens, I guess, that have no foundational reason to live for their country, let alone die for their country. So this is huge stuff, like connecting the dots between a sense of transcendence and purpose, or just believing that, America's evil, all governments are evil, there is no truth, nothing really matters. I was watching over the weekend one of those Jack Ryan movies, and it was interesting, the interplay between, of course, CIA, all this kind of stuff. And there's always been a fine line between what's allowable and what's not allowable, right, for it to do for your country. But they were dancing around the issue of truth. They were dancing around the issue of moral ambiguity, what's right, what's wrong. Is there anything right or wrong? And is your nation really worth fighting for? Or at the end of the day, is everybody out just to stick you in the back? Everybody's a traitor. Everybody lives for themselves. And it really, made you think about, wow, why would anybody fight for their country? What's the foundation of all that? And it goes on to say here, which I thought was interesting, we're experiencing a recruitment renaissance under Secretary of War Pete Hegseth. The services are experiencing a recruiting renaissance that is unprecedented in a generation. Goals are being met and exceeded halfway through the year. Qualified applicants are being turned away from the military. And the Pentagon is budgeting to expand the force by 44,500 troops. And the reenlistment rates have surged. Hegseth himself stood at the mall at Rededicate 250, linking the cultural rededication to the restoration of a warrior ethos. Let's talk about that a little bit. In fact, I just saw at his commencement speech that he gave at the military. Was more like for Army. West Point, thank you. West Point, he actually, the crux of his message, it was not one of these feel-good, let's not offend anybody's speeches. The crux of his message centered around that passage in Isaiah where Isaiah hears the Lord asking, whom shall we send? And he responds, send me. I could just hear the mockery of the left. How dare you use a scripture verse out of context to support, giving your life or volunteering? He's, of course, speaking to officers who are getting ready to graduate. Many of them will be deployed very soon, and they'll be leading, the troops into battle, into harm's way, and they themselves will be risking their own lives. And he's saying, here is this amazing call from God Almighty, who shall I send? And that somehow giving your life to go protect your country is a response to the call of God.
Yeah.
What an interesting concept. What's your thoughts on that? Of course, we believe that around here, that military call and a host of other calls are equally sacred in their nature.
Well, I mean, you ask enough questions, eventually you have to come to the ultimate question. So he addressed the ultimate question. So, for example, it's not as politically correct to talk about God or serving God. But it's more politically correct to say, well, I'm going to serve my family. I want to serve my community, right? Everyone says that. Left or right, everyone says that.
Right.
But then the question is like, but why serve your family? What happened to your family's evil? What happened to why serve your community? What's so good about your community? Why even serve your country?
Right.
What happened to your country is trying to be evil and take over other countries? Like, what happens if your community is an oppressive community? What happens then? And these are the great questions that pops up. Eventually, you ask a question deep enough, it goes to a point where it says, no, really, I'm here not just to serve my community. I'm not here just to serve my family. Like, I might be serving an evil family. I might be serving an evil nation. Ultimately, I got to serve something that transcends my community, my culture, my country, my nation. I got to serve somebody who is, by definition, good.
Right.
Which is God. So you can't get around that.
Right.
And our job is to align our community, align our nation, align our families around someone who's by definition good, which is God, right? So by speaking from the perspective of a calling from God, Hegseth is tapping into the deepest sense, the deepest need we have is to say, hey, we want to be living a purpose that truly matters, right? Because the community and your family and serving your nations, while good, it still has limits.
Yeah.
You know,
and we're talking about what is it that inspires a young man to want to do hard things, want to put his life at risk. You know, it's the call to live for something that transcends you, something greater than your life, like freedom, like liberty, like the idea of America, like fighting for your family and fighting for our way of life. These are all things that, you know, we've been talking in recent podcasts about cultural cohesiveness. These are all things that used to be part of what it meant to be an American. You know, I was going all the way back to Washington's inaugural address, and he was encouraging Americans to rally together and to not allow factions to separate us, because he said at that time, the things that separate us are minor and few compared to the things that unite us. And it was true. At the time, there was this debate over, does the United States support France in their war against England, or do we support England? You know, there was a lot of controversy, and there was a lot of reason for divide. And Washington said, hey, let's focus on, to use what I like to say at Living Stones, let's keep the main thing the main thing. We need to focus on the things that you have united us as Americans. And those things are impossible. I'm thinking of how many factions there are now seeking to divide and separate Americans, keeping us, constantly at one another's throats. If you don't have a clear idea of God, country, values, transcendence, there's nothing that really pulls you together. And I think what Hegseth understands is, if there's not a warrior ethos, if there's not something that says, this is like who we are, this is the way we roll. Yeah. Like for the Marines, no man left behind. I was watching again a wonderful movie, We Were Soldiers, and you just see them actually losing some more men to go rescue those who have been wounded or whatever. But the whole idea is, we're going to fight and we're going to go after, and there's not going to be one of us that's going to be left behind on the battlefield. That's an ethos. That's a mentality. It's a culture that's been shaped by these kind of principles. But if human life is not valuable, if there is no God, then there is no greater purpose. Then we're fighting all these ridiculous wars, and then you got the folks on the left who are just like, let's just live in utopia, and and get in a circle and do a group hug and smoke marijuana and sing John Lennon songs or something. I don't know, but there's nothing. It's a false kind of heaven that they're after. That's impossible this side of eternity, and so you find the left gravitating toward globalism and toward this utopian idealism that actually leads to tyranny and leads to tyrants taking over and leads to a lot of bloodshed. So I'm just thinking again, like, these kind of holidays drive home the fact, like, what do you believe in? What matters? Is there a weightiness about America and what we stand for that pulls? It's like a gravitational pull. It pulls us all together. And it's interesting biblically, I'll just say this. Biblically, the concept of the glory of the Lord, that word glory in Hebrew refers to the weightiness of God. Like, God is ultimate reality. He is the center that around which everything else orbits, so to speak. And when you lose a sense of weightiness in your culture, like, what is it that yes, we're willing to die for that? What is that greater thing? If you lose that, then everything just flies apart. Yeah. And nothing holds together. And as a nation, if you lose your center, you lose the gravity, you lose God, as a nation, you fly apart. Nothing matters. Nothing holds. Everything is meaningless. And I think that's the battle we're fighting with right now. Now, this is a side note. Governor Waltz, who's fighting fraud up in Minneapolis, so concerned about making sure everything's in order. We just had a holiday where he was supposed to speak at a memorial event, which he decided not to show up because it was evidently the 6-year anniversary of George Floyd. And there's a video out of him dancing with several folks at this memorial for George Floyd. Now, again, George Floyd had a rap sheet a mile long, and George Floyd was not somebody we should be making statues of, albeit whatever this tragic surrounding of his passing. But nevertheless, it's like that to me is a picture of America today. Are we going to celebrate the greatness of America and the sacrifices that have been made so that we could enjoy this nation, or are we going to go celebrate somebody who should not be celebrated? That's the picture of American culture from my perspective, today.
Yeah, liberty has no meaning without God. Democracy, the word that people like to use all the time. Why? If there's no God, why is democracy so important?
Yeah, but then you get mob rule. Is what democracy becomes, right?
It becomes mob rule, but without God, why is it not just why shouldn't we just openly say, have mob rule? Why don't we just openly say might means right? Memorial Day has no purpose if there's no God, because life has no meaning and there's no internal value to people. So what are you remembering? You're saying there's value to those people who have passed away because what they've done, we'll still remember them because who they are still exists. Well,
the whole notion of sacrifice.
It's stupidity then.
Right.
It's sacrifice if there's no God.
You're a fool.
So all these, the underlining of God to tie all these traditions together is, I don't think most people think about how deep that is.
Yeah.
But they're absolutely integrated into who we are and what we have. We have safe neighborhoods because we believe in God. We have a civil government because we believe in God. We have a government that doesn't seek to oppress us because of God. It's so infrastructural to everything we do, and we take it for granted.
Yeah, and well said. We're coming upon so many weighty things. Coming upon our 250th anniversary as a nation. It's a time for patriotism, but even patriotism is mocked by those on the left, especially when Christians, you put Christianity with patriotism, love for God and love for country, and then you become a Christian nationalist. Everything that we do, everything that is sacred becomes desecrated by the left once you take God out of the mix. So, I'm hoping we're connecting some major dots here today between everything that matters and a Christian worldview versus an atheistic, secular, godless worldview that gives you a miserable world with nothing worth fighting for. It creates absolute nihilism. You don't care. What does it matter?
You fight for power.
Exactly.
That's the only thing that's left. You fight for power.
And that's a terrible, terrible place to be. I thought this was good. I was doing some research on transcendence and the warrior ethic. It says here, a strong warrior culture is not built simply on power, to which you just alluded. It's built on purpose. And you see this in a lot of countries where soldiers are conscripted. They're fighting because that's what they're told to do, not because they love their country or they love their leaders. And when push comes to shove, there's a lot of people abandoning the cause, retreating. They're not willing to give their lives. They run, they desert because there's no loyalty. There's nothing that holds them together. He says here, transcendent values anchor why soldiers fight, so it gives you the why. They guide how soldiers fight, so it gives you morals to know what's legitimate war and what's evil behavior. They guide, they shape who we become as soldiers. They sustain units under pressure, so there's something that holds everybody together when the pressure increases, and it protects the moral integrity of the mission. Without transcendent values, you may produce fighters but not warriors. With them, you create men and women who are disciplined, resilient, sacrificial, and morally grounded under fire. I thought that was so good. So that's really what's at stake, and I'm grateful that we actually have a strong, masculine, courageous example who is grounded in a biblical worldview, grounded in Scripture. Again, is anybody perfect? No. We have nothing but fallen human beings on planet Earth. But thank God for those that are striving to lead the way and are really rebuilding our military around these powerful truths that pull us together. And I'm excited to see that we've got lots of people willingly signing up for our military. Not that we put our confidence in the strength of our horses or weapons. Our strength is in the Lord. But that's a good sign that there's a whole generation of young men who really love America and believe in America and are willing to fight for America. That to me is a great sign because we were languishing under the last administration.
Well, I would say one element of health of a nation is probably that indicator. If no one's signing up to join the military, no one wants to serve the country, what is that saying about the health of the culture of the nation?
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's a good leading indicator. Yeah,
absolutely. Also, it's interesting now that elections are coming up, and we're asking the question, God is on whose side? It's interesting that we, even as we talk about the belief in transcendence, when you're going into war, you want to know that you're fighting for something that actually aligns with the values of heaven, right? At least that's the way, you read through the Bible in the Old Testament when Israel was faced with their enemies. A real big question was, is God, Lord, do you want us to go fight? And if so, how do you want us to fight? And they were constantly challenged to make sure there was no sin in the camp, that they were living in a way that honored the Lord. In fact, you go back to the early days of our Revolutionary War, and George Washington had very strong punishments against using the Lord's name in vain, being blasphemous. He said, how in the world can we expect God's blessing upon our efforts and upon our cause when we're cursing his name and using his name in vain? So this notion that soldiers are foul-mouthed, undisciplined guys is really more of a Hollywood creation, I think, in more recent years than it was in the early days when discipline and all of those things were very, very strong. But that was why. So now it's a political season, and everybody wants God on their side. That is not so rare for a Republican Party that has tried to, again, promote pro-life and tried to promote pro-family and pro-marriage and some of these things. But it's interesting that a Democratic Party who often ridicules faith and wants nothing to do with God is now looking to have God on their side. We got Kentucky Governor Andy Beshear releasing a book called Go and Do Likewise, a transparent appeal to convince Christians that God's politics lean left. And meanwhile, Texas State Rep James Tallarico is making his master's in divinity degree a centerpiece of a progressive U.S. Senate campaign. The message from both is the same: God is with us on the left. So here we go, a campaign season. Are you shocked that some of our Democratic friends who have not been so God-friendly or Jesus-friendly or Bible-friendly or Christian-friendly are now actually using God to support their campaigns?
No, they're reading the trend. They're seeing what's going on. I mean, they have no messaging, right? So outside their messaging, they're throwing everything at the wall and see what sticks, right? The biggest thing they're trying to stick is like everything Trump does is bad. Okay. Now they're going from this angle, which is we're going to go after the liberal Christians. But as we kind of talked about before, the liberal Christians are not identifying as Christians.
Yeah, exactly.
So they're trying to enter into the evangelical sphere. The level of success, I don't know how much success it's going to have, because I feel like those people who are persuaded with them have already gone with them. So
it's interesting to me that in every political debate about whatever issue, you're always trying to find the moral high ground. And obviously you want to be able to say what you're doing is virtuous and right and good. Joseph Backholm here wrote an article called "The Left Makes a Play at Christian Votes." And he makes a point. He said some issues carry more moral weight than others. I think we could all agree with that. Every political issue should not have the same weight. When you're talking about, for instance, life, when you're talking about gender mutilation, when you're talking about marriage, when you're talking about some of these things that have been historically Christian virtues, and the reason they were so important is they were foundational to human flourishing. He says the political left formally opposes every one of these things, some of which I just mentioned. Affirmation of the biological reality of male and female is called bigotry. Marriage is defined as a union of one man and one woman is called discrimination. The call to be fruitful and multiply is answered with "my body, my choice." And the command to rule and steward the earth has been replaced by an ideology in which human presence is itself the problem. So human beings are the cancer on planet Earth. This is all leftist democratic ideology. And he's saying, it's not going to go over very well, and he doesn't think it's going to fly with genuine Christians who are actually thinking Christians because they're missing like all the biggies and trying to justify.
Both of them are in red states, Kentucky and Texas.
Yeah.
So that's what they're trying to do.
Yeah. So it is a valid strategy. The problem, as you pointed out, is they're very slow to learn. I just saw a major report, kind of a post-mortem report done by a Democrat of the 2024 election. Did I get that right? 2024?
Yes.
Whenever the last national election was.
Yes.
And what they did is they said the problem with the Democratic Party is it's gone woke. And he defined what woke was. It was all of these crazy, radically left agenda that nobody can relate to. Even the Democrats can't relate to. Certainly young men aren't relating to. But he was just saying the biggest one in there was the whole transgender craziness. And they're still hanging on to that as something that is, to die for. And here's a Democrat scratching his head again saying, hey, guys, you're still tone deaf to the reality of what really happened. And until you're willing to let go of some of these things, you're not going to do very well at the ballot box. That's why I think we keep getting back to voter integrity or voting integrity, not so voter integrity, voting integrity. And that, what's the status of that bill? I haven't been following the whole.
Save Act?
Did it die?
Yeah, it died.
So Thune killed it.
Yep, it's done.
And I saw where Trump.
That's why Trump endorsed Paxton instead of Cornyn.
And it'll be interesting because we have shown and seen in the last few elections that it is still a MAGA world, and so it's going to be interesting the impact of his endorsement on that race because it's two titans in the Texas legislature. So it's going to be interesting to see. What happens? But that to me was a no-brainer. We saw the data on that. Even people in the other party are for integrity and election integrity, and most people, including Black America, is in favor of IDs.
Yeah.
So that to me was an easy win. And it'll be interesting to see what happens. But ideas have consequences, worldviews have consequences, and our desire on this podcast has been to say, hey, things matter, ideas matter, and Christ matters. And when He's not in the center, your society falls apart. Yeah. Let me end with something that is especially concerning to all of us in this room. If you can't trust dogs, dogs are man's best friend. This was the headline I came across today, and it absolutely stunned me. Talk about gun violence. A dog accidentally fired a shotgun. What's his accident? We don't really know what the dog's motives were. Sure. But a shotgun blast went off, striking a woman yards away during a chaotic gas station stop. That happened, again, you would expect this to happen in downtown LA. This happened in Nebraska. I mean, you don't expect gun-toting dogs, showing up at gas stations in Nebraska. But it's hitting the Midwest. That's how bad things are getting. This guy pulls up to a Nebraska gas station. His dog evidently got excited in the back seat. Somehow pulled the trigger of a loaded shotgun. The blast went through the door of the vehicle, and praise the Lord, only one little pellet hit a lady in the arm. The dog is currently under interrogation. He says he's innocent. It's hard to believe. But anyway, when this kind of behavior is happening in Nebraska, I think it's time we start to enact some serious gun safety regulations. And of course, this dog's innocent. The problem is the gun. But when this happens, you cannot trust man's best friend. What's the world coming to?
Yeah, you say, guns don't shoot people. People shoot people. Well, we got to change that phrase now.
Dogs!
Yeah, it's
Dogs
not
are
just
shooting people.
Yeah, so you allow guns for people, dogs are going to get hold of it.
That's right.
And then we're still in trouble.
If people won't kill people, the dogs will start.
So,
and God only knows where that's going to go. Cats next, or hamsters.
Then that gets really, really dark. Yeah.
It gets messy. It all falls apart. And that's the point we're trying to make in this podcast. If we lose the core, you're going to have delinquent dogs. Gun-toting. I don't know what breed of dog that was.
That would be very interesting.
I can't imagine Bo becoming violent, or Gracie, but I could see like a German Shepherd doing something like this.
Well,
how about a pit bull? It might have been a pit bull. All of our pit bull lovers now are going to be writing us letters.
I'm just thinking, what? Only in Nebraska will you leave a loaded shotgun in the back seat with your puppy that's super energetic.
Hey, take it easy on. Those are our guys out there, right? Gun-toting.
Oh, it'll be fine.
Yeah.
Put the safety on that. Let's have loaded shells in there. Yeah.
That's the question. How did that dog pull the trigger of a loaded shotgun in the back of a car? Anyway, we're going to solve that in the next podcast. More to come. Thank you guys for watching. We appreciate your feedback every week, and I pray that you have an amazing, amazing week. We'll see you next Thursday.